With the latest retirement, the shock retirement of Tony Bennett for Virginia, what does that mean for Mick Cronin's UCLA tenure? Is it UCLA's time?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free where we get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. All you got to do is place your first $5 bet, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed by going to FanDuel.com to get started. Where we get started today, the latest in a bunch of coaching retirements on the men's basketball side is the shock immediate retirement of Virginia's head coach. All right. And while there's still a lot to figure out, Tony Bennett, he's retired. He's won a championship, but there's not a lot to know about. All I think I've seen is that it's not health related, and they'll have a press conference pretty soon. All right. And that comes on the heels of Coach K retiring, Roy Williams for North Carolina. Think about, right, in recent years, you had Jay Wright retiring pretty young. And who knows how much longer Bill Self's going to go. Mark Few's in his 60s. You sitting there with Mick Cronin, semi-early 50s, right? Bennett still only a couple years older than UCLA's head coach. But does that mean, in this day and age, where some coaching legends are walking out and retiring from this game, the biggest name in the college basketball world is Danny Hurley, all right? Like that, UConn's obviously got supremacy. They've got in the college basketball world, they reign supreme in March and April these last 2 years. And then who is that next guy to challenge, right? Of course, it's going to be Kansas, you think. Tommy Lloyd wants to go do things in Arizona. No, Mick Cronin went out there this offseason after complaining, telling the people how it was with the NIL and lack thereof for UCLA last year, and it came through. And now there's new branches. UCLA men's basketball has its own branch of NIL funds under the new Champion of Westwood NIL Collective umbrella. And the Bruins, as showcased in their most recent scrimmage, two of their most utilized returners, the two biggest names from last year's team for UCLA, I would say Stefanovic and Dylan Andrews. Mac had the most dynamic, but the guys who played the most minutes and were the most consistent between Andrews and Stefanovic, they were the least scoring guards, the least impactful in the scoring in the blue versus gold scrimmage, which gold largely helped out by all the newbies and Dominic Harris's 20 points. Didn't torch the returners and Kobe Johnson, but they did come back from 10 points down and win that game and showcase how good the Bruins will be this year as they figure out who will be their number one guy with an immense depth of talent. So if there's ever a chance for UCLA to flex their muscle, right? And it's too early to even talk about can you go do blah, blah, blah. No. All right, this is a chance for UCLA to start something special, all right? UCLA has not had consistent UCLA play since the Ben Howland days when they went to 3 straight Final Fours in the national championship game to start it off. They made a medium run with Steve Alford. They've made a Final Four, heartbreakingly short in that Final Four overtime game to Gonzaga. But Mick Cronin, I think after his first iteration, his first full 4-year cycle of COVID, learning the new transfer portal day and age, which has completely changed how college basketball is. Now NIL keeps guys in there older and longer for longer careers, and they can go to UCLA. This is an opportunity for the Bruins to really crawl back up into college basketball lore, right? You're making the change to Big Ten, so you're going to be traveling all the time. UCLA, as much as they won't be beloved on the football side of things, right? People are going to be joking about how poor this Rutgers game might be. It's early morning, the late games football-wise. There's still a lot for Deshaun Foster and company to figure out. Basketball, I'm pretty sure when UCLA comes to town, they're going to be starting to sell out those arenas pretty soon. All right, USC, Oregon, Washington. Yes, those are new, fresh teams. And speaking of new coaches, 2 of those 3 schools are going with new coaches. And who knows how much longer Dana Altman has. This is the time for UCLA not only to own the West, but to start dominating college basketball once again. And this is the year to start doing it, because you still got some of these players who have multiple years of eligibility after this season, namely Dylan Andrews, Sebastian Mack returners, right? Brandon Williams, Devin Williams, Adai Mara. Those are some returners. William Kyle. Then you've got Eric Daly Jr., Dominic Harris. All have this year, next year, and maybe some more, depending on which of those names you pick out, to have extra eligibility. And Sky Clark as well, right? These guys have extra eligibility to play for 1-2 years. And with coaches retiring, and I'm not really sure how the Virginia situation is going to, plan out. So this is recorded before that. We get full details as to what Tony Bennett's situation is. And it says it's not health related. So I guess that's the good news. And that is a shock to college basketball when some of the more recent championships in the last decade plus, last 2 decades, won by a Roy Williams, won by, a Duke, won by, right, the Jay Wrights and Tony Bennett's of the world. Those coaches are slowly moving out. And Cronin, what you could say is a bit of a coaching prime, could move in to a new opportunity to slide in as that guy to be like, hey, I'm going to take that next step. Not that he needed these guys to leave, but this is when you can turn your program into perennial Final Four status or bust. In UCLA, they have the name that should be associated with it, but in recent decades, the last 3 decades plus, right? Since they won number 11, the one since John Wooden retired, the late, great John Wooden, the pyramid of success has not been built upon success at UCLA in the years to follow. This is the chance to bring it out. Is this the time? Absolutely. Absolutely. The schedule is there. The national opportunity with Big Ten travel, the national primetime games. When you're seeing, Indiana play at home at Assembly Hall, you're going to see the blue and gold. All right? And right before that or after that, you're going to go see them play in Illinois. And the packed house in West Lafayette when they go play Purdue after that. And good riddance will probably be sold out in Northwestern. And when Ohio State comes, all right. Speaking of a new coach, boom. How much longer is Tom Izzo going to go? You see where I'm going with this? The cream of the crop might be UCLA for Big Ten basketball. Weird to say a couple years ago, weird to say ever in the history that a Midwest basketball league could be owned by UCLA. I'm not saying that's going to happen right now, right away, but it's shifting into place for UCLA to put the pedal to the metal immediately. And all of a sudden, we're not talking just 1 year of greatness. This team could come back and be really good for 2 years with a lot of similar faces, additions high school recruiting-wise. You mix in a 4 or 5 star there as the Bruins try to chase down their only 20-25 target. Cronin continues to ace the portal while basketball is a little easier to manage in the pay-for-play model that'll soon be brought in for pretty much all these sports. And the Bruins can be primed for success. This is the time. Now. And what makes this team so great? Now, let's remind you one more time. As we get closer to the season, when the Bruins open at home versus Rider on some national television, might be a little late for you East Coasters, you out-of-town Bruins. Let's remind you what makes this team special and why is it now to build for the future in this day and age where satisfaction, we don't wait for long-term satisfaction. We want it now. And the Bruins got it now. Let's talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. All right, UCLA fans, maybe you want to go check out FanDuel. You can get a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, that Rutgers game, UCLA is an underdog. All these games, the Bruins will probably be underdogs going all the way through. So do you want to go for or against UCLA when you go to FanDuel? Because if you get that hunch in the middle of the game, you want to check out the latest stats of the Bruins, or view live play-by-play and so much more on the page where you place your bets, you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And maybe you want to watch how UCLA plays, or maybe you want to go watch the games on Sunday too, whatever it might be. Place your first $5 bet and get $200 in bonus bets. All right? Do you believe in a Rutgers offense that has been flailing these last 2 weeks, and all of a sudden UCLA can go sneak one across the country before a bye week? Would love so. If you believe so, hammer the Bruins as the underdog in this game. Maybe even straight up if you believe in that too, for UCLA against Rutgers. All you got to do is check out FanDuel.com. All right, here we go. Second segment, Locked On UCLA. We're going back with more men's basketball, all right? The Bruins. They're picked to finish third in the Big Ten. Of the top 4 teams, UCLA, which is one of them, the other 3, the Bruins have to play them all on the road away from Pauley Pavilion, right? This is similar to a football schedule. The only difference between basketball and football is you're going to get a truer sense of a regular season champion than you will in football, because there's 18 teams in the conference and they're only playing 9 conference games in football. While in basketball, they're going to play everybody. UCLA does get 2 games against SC, Washington, and Oregon. Home and home against those. But those toughest games versus those teams that are predicted to be atop the Big Ten are supposed to be teams that are tough on the road. Tough games to play on the road. And I've talked to a couple of Big Ten guys, right, in, whether it's in this network, other networks, about, all right, they expect their teams to be good as well. And like, hey, this team might surprise, They'll be rocking at home in their own arena. So this conference is deeper than just the 10 names you might recognize, all right? Heck, UCLA's battle against Rutgers football-wise will be an extremely good basketball battle from what I understand, because Rutgers is at the edge of the top 25 with some freshman sensation. 2 freshman sensational potential lottery products, maybe, with the Scarlet Knights. But I'm sitting here with UCLA, and let's go back to that scrimmage one more time. It was 64-57. The gold beat the blue. The returners largely on the blue. The newbies mostly on the gold. You mix in Stefanovic for one, Kobe Johnson to play with Dylan Andrews on the other, and Mick Cronin probably just enjoying and hating and loving it all at once with, all right, this is what I'm going to chew them out for practice the next day. All right? And what do the Bruins do? They showcase their best, the suffocating pressure they can apply defensively, the ability to score any which way that they couldn't last year when they had one of the most inefficient, ugly offenses, all right? Yes, it's been a rough year in the calendar year of 2024. If you watched UCLA basketball earlier in this calendar year where they couldn't score, and now a post-Chip Kelly UCLA football offense, and in these big-name, big-money sports at this moment, offense has not been pretty, all right? And maybe if Deshaun Foster and the UCLA Bruins football-wise change things with Bieniemy or whatever, maybe they can get clicking on offense for their second half of this season or in the future, all right, in this next year. But what Mick Cronin did after seeing his team could not score, and he emphasizes defense. Defense wins championships, but you have to be able to put the ball in the basket because you're not going to shut out teams in basketball, and you're not going to keep them under 50, all right? You're not going to be Virginia, all right? They literally low scoring, but they still hit their threes timely. The Bruins have to go get buckets, and you're going to be exhausted, and you're going to need new guys to get buckets. And again, I'll reiterate this one more time. Stefanovic and Dylan Andrews, in a game where there were a lot of new Bruins or Bruins who are trying to prove themselves or returners that are trying to earn themselves a spot, Andrews and Stefanovic, I believe, combined for 10 or 11 points. And they were not the most flashy. And they don't need to be the most flashy. Stefanovic's biggest role might not be on the court this year. It might be his leadership off the court, because he was already the vocal leader on the court last year. He will get minutes. Cronin loved the kid. But when you go out and get Kobe Johnson, that is going to literally eat into UCLA's leader last year, their transfer from Utah, the former Runnin' Ute, Stefanovic. That's going to eat into his playing time. In a guy that's got the same year and eligibility status for the UCLA Bruin, all right? And then you've got Dylan Andrews, who's not going to be asked to score. Heck, Cronin's already come out and say it with media, saying it could be 6, 7, 8 different guys that lead the team in scoring. All right? Like Eric Daly Jr. went out and scored double figures. Dominic Harris put in 20, and again, I don't believe he will be starting to begin this year. Clark put in some double figures or close to that with his efforts. Devin Will, they were doing some things as well. Adai Mara apparently is just getting stronger by the day. And remember last year, I was like, man, Mara's not even ready to play because of eligibility things. And Berike, the former Bruin too, before he hit the portal. This year, Mara's like, all right, we're hoping his foot's okay. We're hoping he gets stronger. But that project, they don't got to rush that project, all right? They don't need to fine-tune it. It doesn't need to be like the parent rushing for your kid who says, hey, I need some glue or something weird for a diorama for a project that was due at 1 a.m. tomorrow or something, and you're rushing to the store to go buy something from like Michael's or whatever, right? No, they don't need to rush a diorama like that and get frustrated. Come on, we need you to develop yesterday. No, UCLA doesn't need to do that with that roster. If they have projects on this team, which supposedly that's what Cronin views as Devin Williams, to get more muscle, Mata needed more development physically, maturing on the court, getting stronger, but he could still pass. And yet all these newcomers, athletic, scoring, defense, allows some of these guys who are going to take a year or two to develop fully, and they won't be hard-pressed by Cronin to learn on the fly. And I think, quite honestly, we'll be given more successful opportunities with better players than they had last year, right? Cronin was trotting close to 4 newcomers at times on the court last year if Bona was in foul trouble or Dylan Andrews was cramping up. When you had Will McClendon, who really hadn't seen the floor in many minutes prior to last year, overcoming a devastating knee injury before he transferred out for a new opportunity. And the guys who had struggled to shoot threes or trying to figure out ways to shoot north of 30% from three, UCLA's got guys who can shoot close to 35, 36% from three, nearly 50% from three in Dominic Harris. So the ability to lace it up, splash it from downtown consistently is there for this team. In the mid-range, Bilodeau's probably got that knocked down. Dylan Andrews has that. Stefanovic maybe from three in mid-range if he has the opportunity and the need to shoot it. Cool. And Sebastian Mack showcased he can go downhill, and if he's healthy, probably will get a little more whistles as a sophomore. Probably will be able to finish a bit better now as a second-year player who's a little healthier, can probably push better without dealing with the toe that is nagging him all year long. And, all right, if William Kyle stays out of foul trouble compared to last year's Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, Dem Bona, imagine if they have a rim stuffer and a low-post presence in the paint with an uber-athletic William Kyle, although Cronin I think is a little worried about the 5 spot because he is taking a jump up, William Kyle. But again, once you got a 7-3 Mara healthy, you've got some ways to play small ball 5. The Bruins can alter what they need to do because they've got so much versatility to guard 1 through 5 with an assortment of bodies. 7'3", 6'10", 6'11", uber athletic, 6'4", long limbs, long lanky guys that can come in and guard 3 or 4 positions. This is Mick Cronin's dream team, which we go back to that first segment. Is it time? Yeah, this is a team I would like to believe and truly do believe can make it to a third weekend in an NCAA tournament. Of course, they got to step on the court. They got to do a lot of things, but there is high expectations for this team. There is hopeful expectations for last team with a lot of things that had to come together. It didn't. And with all the guys leaving, we'll never truly know how it pans out. This year, the proven status of what they've done elsewhere on bigger stages, getting to the NCAA tournament, playing against teams who made it to a Final Four, playing top-tier teams, top dogs across the country, game in, game out, they're coming together knowing, hey, we did not have to come here if we wanted to be the superstar. And if they want to do like that, Cronin can bench them, and anybody can step up. They know what they did coming here, right? With Trent Perry, Eric Freeney, 2 guys who I haven't even mentioned, the 2 freshmen who will be battling for time this year as well. Ridiculous, huh? You can go through a literal conversation talking about this UCLA basketball team and realize I've forgotten 2 or 3 guys. Not every year do you have a roster where you have to rattle off 10, 11 guys, 12 guys, and be like, that guy can legitimately play tonight and put in 10 points or get a big defensive stop or a bunch of rebounds or play 20-plus minutes. And you're like, man, I forgot that guy. He's good. Or I forgot this guy. That is how it'll be when you're sitting there with UCLA later in the year, early in the year. But what happened to Brandon Williams? Well, his spot got taken. What happened to the guy who took Brandon Williams' spot? Well, Brandon won it back, right? That could be something that happens throughout this year again and again. Well, Dylan Andrews, I don't think his spot will be tested, but it very well could with how talented and battle-tested we hope that the veteran transfer guys are and how scrappy these freshmen are supposedly supposed to be. Man, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the Bruins do against Rider. Now, I don't want this to fall flat on my face and all of a sudden they go do something stupid against Rider and throw a pie in my face and do something dumb. But this team, I believe, will be very special. Basketball season, I like to say will make up for what has been a very slow beginning to fall into a long winter. Winter is coming, and that is a good thing. All right. Next, we're going to talk about the LA Times article about Jay Toia and his return to UCLA. What facilitated that? Next, a Locked On UCLA. Guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we always want to try to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer and give you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. All right. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That is HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable, compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. All right, rocking on here in the last segment of Locked On UCLA. We're talking Jay Toia, right? He just had a nice article about him and his journey to return to UCLA by Jay Toia, by Ben Bolch of the LA Times. Always does great work. The UCLA beat writer for them. This came out the day this podcast is coming out as well. And what he talked about, and I think one of the biggest quotes for a UCLA big man on an interior defensive line for a 1-5 team that's lost 5 straight games. Tell me this doesn't say a lot about this dude and what he wants. And of course, I don't want to take away from his character if he did choose to go to Texas, like he was very close to doing, going to Texas this spring game, checking it out, doing a little trial and error period in the portal, where he could have been with the country's best team and could be what is one of the country's worst Power 4 teams, right? I'm optimistic about this year's team and the Deshaun Foster thing, but let's be real, this team is close to one of the worst teams in the Power 4 conference. Versus he could have been at a school which is currently number 1 in the country as they embark on their new journey in a completely different conference, all right? And what he wanted to show you is that Jay Toia was quoting this article as saying, going to the process, I told myself I didn't want to be bought. I wasn't going to go anywhere because of NIL. That's what Jay Toia's quote was. He continued to say, it was culture and development over everything, which is the ultimate reason I decided to come back to UCLA. A leader on a line where every coach on the opposite side, the offensive line coaches, what are they game planning? They're putting big bodies, multiple, to fill up the middle to make sure the big fella doesn't do anything. You look at Toia's numbers, they're not going to flash out at you because every game plan to nullify the UCLA defense is to make sure he doesn't do anything. And then, as the article goes on to state, and as you've seen pretty much, guys in the backfield, like Kay Medrano, last year's, I think, breakout linebacker, you've seen a lot of big-time plays by Carson Schlesinger, who is leading the Big Ten in tackles this year. And there's quite a few plays that if UCLA wants to blitz, they're getting off the edge because so much attention is brought to this man that head coach Deshaun Foster was quoted in this article as saying, it kind of just shows you what type of person Jay is. He's selfless. He goes on to continue and say, I'm sure he would like some one-on-one so he could beat some guys and get some sacks and some tackles for loss. But the situation that's happening, he's just doing a great job eating the blocks and letting the linebackers roam around and make plays. That's what head coach Sean Foster said about Jay Toia in this Ben Bolch written article. And this is also what Jay Toia had to say. Whatever I can do to help this team, I've got to count on my teammates to make the plays. All right, that's another quote from this article. So what we're learning about is that they're trying to instill a culture. And that was a big get for UCLA to keep one of their most important defensive linemen, one of the most important players and leaders on this team. Ironically, I guess I learned from this article in high school when Jay Toia was a part of a high school playoff battle against Ethan Garbers when he was at Corona Del Mar. It was Toia who sacked him and led his team deeper into the high school state playoffs. And now they're, teammates together from a Toia who actually already went into the portal, was at USC initially, and then came to UCLA. It's a guy that loves to be close to home. And again, continues this trend for this is what a UCLA guy needs to be. This is what Deshaun Foster needs to recruit. Talented local products or guys who have made SoCal their home or don't want to go too far, whether it's, recruiting on the islands, going to Hawaii, going up and down the coast. I know there's a whole new literal portal, not the transfer portal, a whole new part of the country. Going to the East Coast, if you're going to Rutgers to recruit, going to the Midwest and winning some of these guys that Chip Kelly tried to get, lost, got, after just failing and not even really trying to recruit in recent years. There's guys who want to stay close to home and play at UCLA, or they're debating between UCLA and USC. And as much as UCLA is 1-5, USC is 3-3, and they're falling well below their expectations under Lincoln Riley. And I wonder how hot his seat is going to be, as much as they pay twice the money, ponied up, brought Danton Lynn over their defense, yada, yada. Well, Kaka Malloy's handling his own with a lot less talent, a lot less size, with their best player getting double, triple teamed. And as he was flirting with Texas, he comes back to help with the culture. A defensive coordinator, and we all love Danton Lynn. We'd love for him to stay and keep Kaka Malloy on this staff as well. But a guy crying with passion. That's the same room on the D-line with Jay Toia, right? They're building something. Now, I can't say it's going to turn around and they're going to score 30 points because that's a whole different thing offensively, or it's going to translate into 6 wins next year, 10 wins after that. That's not what I'm saying, but they're trying to build something. And the selflessness of Jay Toia in his last year as a UCLA Bruin, let's show him some love when the Bruins return to the Rose Bowl on homecoming night against Iowa November 8th. Give him some love because the Bruins will be away from home for a few weeks, 2 road games and a bye week in between. Give the man some love, who could literally be playing on the number 1 team in the country right now, getting some fat NIL deal, playing and getting stats, and he chose to come to UCLA. That's a character kid, all right? And there's nothing wrong if he went to Texas. It would have sucked, but there's nothing wrong if he did that. We just got to show this kid some love, as written in this well-written LA Times article by Ben Bolch. But again, Toia, the focus of this, give him some love, all right? And those are the guys UCLA wants, those high-character, high GPA guys to get into UCLA, even though they still get who drops the biggest, stash of cash. That's what they need, those guys, to help build the culture, discipline, respect, enthusiasm, and once upon a time, eventually, they can maybe get some talent, score some points, and have some fun in between, all right? That's where we're going to wrap things up. Next episode, we're going to talk about a little more keys to the game, more things about UCLA Rutgers, and what do I think is going to happen. And remember, we'll always react right after the game for UCLA after the Rutgers games, win or lose. So get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.